the globalists and the warmongers have blamed Assad for this latest gas attack. And yesterday in the first segment, we talked about some of the different responses from people who had opposing views in a timeline. And we talked about controlling the narrative. And then at the last hour of the show last night, we only got to mention what was going on as we were joined by a guest. But Mr. Sangari's here, and we're gonna talk a little bit about what's going on in Syria, the strategy behind what has happened, and where we might go from here. Mr. Sangari, welcome back to the Hagmann Report.
It's good to be back, guys.
It's great to have you. Since the last time you've been on, there's been a few changes that have happened here. And yesterday we laid this out about the gas attack on March 30th. The U.S. ambassador to the UN said that we were not going to go for a regime change in Syria. Then Rex Tillerson, a few days after that, backed up that claim, saying they're not going to try to oust Assad when trying to bring a peaceful end to the Syrian civil war. And then, boom, on the 4th of April, there was a gas attack, and they turned around and immediately blamed Assad. And for whatever reason, whether it's somebody talking in Trump's ear, I believe it was more a political maneuver for Trump rather than a revenge or it was a message Trump was sending not only to Syria but the world and to his critics here in the U.S. And I think it was kind of strategic. But there's been a lot of backlash as Trump ran on a non-interventionist platform. He's not going to get involved, and it kind of went against everything that he criticized Obama for in 2013 and what he ran on in his campaign. Mr. Sangari, what do you have to make of these events that have just transpired?
I think they're heading into positive for the United States from a strategic standpoint. I know it's just a tactical strike, but if you want to tie it to the narrative of what happened prior to the chemical attack and then with the strike taking place, I think you see that the stars basically aligned in the right direction. You have the president of Jordan coming to United States, president of Egypt coming to United States. Both countries are very good friends of Israel. They both have recognized Israel's right to exist. At the same time as they come, you see that the president of China is going to arrive here. And then the process of him arriving, with China expanding in Asia, with the Russians, as I was just 3 weeks ago, we were talking, and I said, I don't know what the plan is for Syria, because although we've introduced our Marines in the East, Russia still wins at the end. Russia's going to get its pick of who's going to be the replacement for Assad, if Assad has to be replaced. And they're not engaged in the combat operations. The U.S. is kind of outside the table when it comes to negotiations. So we're not negotiating from a position of strength. And what happens is now you have the major countries that are there securing our footprint. Israel being a strategic depth partner for United States, Jordan being a very good partner with ties to Egypt and Israel. Egypt itself finally reconfirming his relationship with Israel and United States in the meetings, given the fact that if you look at Lebanon possibly being the next position where we may have a war, as ISIS was shifting its operations from Syria into Lebanon, as it was pivoting towards the West, that gave an opportunity with what happened with this strike for us to send a clear message that U.S. is now back in the negotiations in Syria and that we are going to have a say in shaping the future of Syria. I think that's beneficial both for Russia, U.S., and everybody involved in the discussions. What you see in the media may play out differently, but I think from a just a simple strategic negotiation standpoint, I think in the long run, it's much better for the U.S. and Russia and all the neighboring countries for this action to have taken place where U.S. is now negotiating from a position of strength.
Right before we went live, I asked you what you thought of the latest Syrian gas attack. And as you said, I guess it doesn't matter right now. The former UK ambassador to Syria, Peter Ford, gave an interview, and he said it's the interventionalists, like dogs returning to their own vomit, meaning they tried this in 2013, and then they continue to try. And we see this here with John McCain and Lindsey Graham, the right-wing warmongers, all got behind Trump yesterday, and it was kind of out of character for them. It seems like that they're trying to push this in a certain direction. Does the gas attack? Do you have any idea or how this happened? Or I mean, we know no real evidence has come forth except some of the videos. There's not been they said Assad did it, and the Department of Defense released a flight map. Um, but beyond that, did you see a rush to judgment here to blame Assad?
Oh, well, look, if you we posted an article on Near East Center for Strategic Engagement, and it was on April 6th, actually, before the strikes against the airbase took place. And we were holding that article for a couple of days. But it really, one of the questions we asked was that who actually is to blame for the attack? And we also went down and then laid out all the nations. You know, Assad, for him to do so would make no sense because one thing that we have to understand, Russia has such a strong footprint in Syria right now. They literally have created the hunter-killer teams to go after the ISIS operators in the region. For you to be able to have hunter-killer teams from the local community, you have to have deep roots in all these cities. So when Assad uses a chemical weapon somewhere, he cannot just use it specifically in an area where you have Russian operators are operating. It could actually kill them also. So it would be a negative for him to have used it. At the same time, if a chemical weapon was used, then as you see now, the blame goes back to the United States and the UN for not doing their job to begin with the Russians who had all said that the chemical weapons were cleared out of Syria. It wouldn't help the Russians for such an attack to take place because then, as you see now, Russia would be blamed for the fact that they're supporting a terrorist regime. At the same time, for this type of an attack to take place, really, frankly, the biggest benefit for us, United States, strategically, is that it brought us finally to the table of being able to negotiate from a position of strength. So we were already negotiating. We had met with the Russians and the Turks about what the future of Syria was going to be. But really, when this chemical attack took place, for whatever reason, whoever might have been responsible, and the way we laid it out in our article was maybe others were responsible for it, or certain groups that were not invited to the party have not decided to use this platform or means to come to the party, almost like wedding crashers. So it gave us an opportunity to be able to now go in, strike not Syria really by hitting that airfield, by striking the Assad himself, striking an airfield that is close to the borders of Israel, Lebanon, which was being used, whether we liked it or not, to bring resupplies in. And a lot of people need to hark back to the Israeli attack that took place in Syria just a month ago, which it took out a lot of major supplies that were coming in. Those supplies were actually coming in from North Korea to supply forces on the ground. So while you have the Chinese leadership here in Florida, meaning with the United States, not only did that strike send a message to him, it sent a message to North Korea, it sent a message to Russia, it sent a message to Iran, it sent a message to Jordan, Egypt, Israel, Lebanon, and it sent a message to all the other countries and actors in the region. So I'm not going to say who did it, but
Mr. Sangari, I don't know if you can hear us, but hold on a second. You got cut off.
It's yeah. We have a little we have an audio
technical
issue.
hiccup on our
issue.
end.
Yeah, we're getting the audio back. Just stand by just momentarily. We're speaking to Sargis Sangari. And folks, if you have not read the article, nec-se.com, that is nec-se.com, chemical attack in Syria, who's to blame? That's from April 6th, from yesterday. Go ahead.
Do we have you back, Mr. Sangari?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay.
Good to go.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it was an attack that happened. It's unfortunate, but at least for us, it gave us an opportunity to hit the target that references back to the regime.
Do you think that this strike this tactical strike was something that the administration had planned even before the chemical attack happened, and was just looking for a reason to flex their muscles
and a target, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't look at it from a position where everything was planned to include this attack in order for us to be able to conduct this attack. What happened was, Trump won the presidency. When he won, he came in and he basically told Putin that this is what I want to do. And part of what we have to do coordination-wise in Syria, because there's so many aircraft flying, on any given day, you can have 5 different countries flying on the radar screen. And I don't know if your viewers are aware of this or not. Even North Korea has flown their aircrafts there for training purposes, so their pilots can get some training, and that's a call that China made. And the North Korean relationship with the Syrian government goes back to when North Korea was trying to sell nuclear technology to the Syrian government, which led to the attack by the Israeli forces against the Syrian nuclear facility in September 6th of 2007. And they've had this relationship was going back to even 2001, for 6 years without Israel knowing that North Korea and Syria were planning on building a nuclear facility in Syria itself. So all these things are tied. That's why we try to teach link analysis in the region. The area was getting dangerous, or ISIS was maneuvering towards Lebanon, which was going to destabilize Lebanon, which was going to force, as I had said last year on your show, possibly with Israel maybe having to go back into southern Lebanon. All these factors tying into each other would tell me that if I was the president or his advisor, I would say, sir, make sure you sit and tell President Putin with no uncertain terms that you have a plan for the region and what that plan is. And for us to go in and conduct a strike in Syria, one thing that you have to do on a technical level is that the friendly aircrafts have to be able to be identified based on their pingers. What does that mean? That means when I fly an American aircraft, or if I fly a Russian aircraft, U.S. systems and the Russian systems have to be able to identify those aircraft. So that means that you have to have gotten to a point where you exchange this information with the Russians giving it to us and us giving it to them for us to be able to deconflict the battle space. So in that capacity, of course, they had talked to each other. Of course, they had put out their feelers out there. Now, Secretary of State Tillerson came out and said that, we're not going to do a regime change, and maybe it was a strike that was taking place by the Syrian government. Maybe he took the bait and decided to, embolden himself by attacking his enemies using sarin gas, and that's on him. Nobody told him to take the bait. If you do it, then then you're not a good leader for your nation to begin with. So we're in a position now, at least if the change does take place, and it will take place. Russians and Iranians never wanted Assad in the place anyway. Eventually, when peace comes to Syria, and all wars end on the peace table anyway, what will happen is at least now U.S. has set the stage that they had a say in who should come in and rule over Syria in the future. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I guess trying to analyze more than what's necessary here. So moving forward into what happens from here, we know Russia has a very strong presence, as you just described, the hunter. What was it? The hunter killer teams, and that we know that the number of cities they've pushed ISIS back, and ISIS is coming from a weaker position. What more do you think it will take to terminate ISIS in the region, to do what Donald Trump said is to wipe out the radical Islamic terror? I know we can never really wipe it out, but at least end the civil war. Do you see the possibility now that even maybe the U.S. and Russia come together to accomplish the mission of peace in Syria, or do you think this is going to drag out a lot longer?
As I said, all wars end up at the negotiation table at the end, regardless. World War I, World War II, even World War III, if it happens in the future, will end up at the negotiating tables one of these days. But I think this is a good first process because, like I said, 3 weeks ago, I told you guys, I said, I have no clue what our plan is for Syria. As of yesterday, I know exactly what our plan is now. And I know that U.S. is not negotiating from a position of strength. because what that tactical strike did, it did not go after Syria. We weren't attacking Syria. We were attacking the Assad regime. If he wanted to attack Syria, we should have knocked out every single aircraft throughout the entire area of operation, and knocked out all their air bases. And I think that sent a pretty clear message to Russia that we're not here in Syria as a secondary on the negotiation tables. Now we are on the equal basis at the table as equal partners going forward in these negotiations. And now it gives an opportunity possibly to build towards a faster peaceful resolution. Because prior to that, what happened in Homs with all the killing that took place, it was literally to eradicate the Sunni majority and replace them with the Alawites. And they were basically killing human beings to replace them with another sect. And that is not something that we can allow or let it happen within the new reset of what's going to happen in the region for the next 100 years. And this is a new Sykes-Picot, and U.S. and Russia are in charge of it. Before it used to be the French and the British 100 years ago.
Colonel, if I can ask this in a broader sense, and I just want to thank you again for taking your time out for appearing with us, because this is an important subject. It's on everyone's minds. But compare yourself where you were at, if you don't mind. Breitbart did an article on you, the Assyrian army, in dire need of course, military support from the United States. That was back on November 10th, 2015. Compare yourself, or your position, from November 2015 to now, April 2017, if you don't mind, both good and bad improvements, and or whatever you might need for improvement in terms of help from the United States and from the American people.
November 2015, we were holding the forward line of troops. We had foreign fighters that were also within our ranks, all of them special capable units. We had individuals from Scotland, France, Australia, Brazil, every possible country you can imagine, and some countries that I cannot mention because of security reasons. But any country that you can imagine, we had both males and females working with the Assyrian army ranks. We were holding the forward line of troops. Since then, the foreign fighters haven't been there, because what happened was, after the Assyria Nineveh Plain got cleared, the Kurdish Regional Government did not allow any foreign fighters that were fighting with our type of a force to be on the ground. I did not have authorization to risk those guys' lives, because every time an individual who's a volunteer gets killed, it puts a burden on U.S. systems, whether it be our special forces who would have to go retrieve them, or our basically political systems who have to deal with the issue. Now, we pulled those individuals up. We've transitioned from being an army that you'll see on the battlefield a lot to a more of a unconventional warfare type of an army, because right now, I cannot even stand around various different checkpoints on the Assyria Nineveh Plain. If I do, they're going to kill me, because everybody has plugged me in. Both the Sunni Muslim Kurds know my location, the Shia know my location, the Sunni know my location. I'm guarding garbage. So from that perspective, we transition our guys mostly off the battlefield. And in today's fight in the Assyria Nineveh Plain, you have to have 3 uniforms. One uniform must be a Kurdish Peshmerga uniform, another one has to be an Iraqi army uniform, and another one has to be an ISIS uniform if you want to mull around the battlefield. If you put anything that says I'm an Assyrian Christian, Assyrian army fighter here, you're going to get shot. And it could be from any of the 3 individuals I just mentioned to you. We just got the word today that in Karakush, which is an Assyrian village, which was really untouched by ISIS because of all the efforts that we and other militias on the ground had done, and the Assyrian army in particular, everybody who was captured during the clearing operations that was turned over to the Kurdish Regional Government of being a ISIS fighter or supporter are being let go. They're not just being let go, they're being let go with money in their pockets. What does that do? That puts the ISIS guy who's been defeated on a battlefield back into the general public again. There's a catch-release program. Why is that happening? That's happening because the Kurdish Regional Government is taking steps now to try to, after the Mosul fight, separate and establish their own territory, Kurdistan, they call it. And part of what they want to have in that Kurdistan is what they've already designated, which is the Assyria Nineveh Plains, which is Assyrian homelands. And by releasing these guys into the system, not only are they agitating the Sunnis against the Shia, which you're going to see Shia and Sunnis killing each other again, possibly in these Assyrian villages. And it also affects the Christians by the fact that they cannot go back to their villages because there's no security. So when we say we're going to kill ISIS on the battlefield, as I said last time we were talking on the interview, I could have done that. You could have given me $500,000. I could have probably taken all of Assyria Nineveh Plain today, and you would have had a American footprint with a joint operations center with U.S. Special Forces sitting in the middle of Assyria Nineveh Plain. But nobody wanted to help at that time, and still they're hesitant to help the Assyrian Christians. Why? Because we're Assyrian Christians. We are not Sunni Muslim Kurds, we are not Sunni Arabs, and we're not Shia Arabs. With that said, I think if you have an Assyrian footprint in their own historical nation, you have a ability to transition that entire region to bring it to a functional peace. The problem is, all I could do is say that to the politicians. They don't consult with me when they make a decision to go support al-Nusra Front or give money to bad actors, or in this case, give money to individuals. Say, well, there's a different type of a Sunni Muslim than that guy. This one has females who are in their military ranks. These guys don't. Iran used to be a free nation. Girls used to wear miniskirts in Iran. Take a look at it today. Don't be surprised if one day your Kurdistan becomes an Iranian Islamic Republic as it is today. Those things happen. But if you give an opportunity to save these safe havens of these ethnic cities, whether it be the Assyrians or the Yazidis who are going through a genocide, you don't have to worry about ISIS melting into the public. I can go find the guy because I've lived with him. He's been my next door neighbor. We showed a video of a teacher whose house was burned by the same students who he taught and raised in school and kept in his house because they didn't have a house to live in. Why did they burn his house? He was a Christian. They were Muslim, Arabs, okay? But he raised them. He knows where they are. Look at it this way. Everybody in the projects of Chicago knows where the bad guys are, where the drug dealers are, where all the corrupt people are, okay? How come the police in Chicago can't find them? Because nobody trusts the police, okay? Nobody trusts the Kurdish, Sunni, Muslim Kurds to administer their area. Nobody trusts the Sunni Arabs to administer their area if they're not from his ethnicity, and nobody trusts the Shia Arabs to administer their area if they're not from his ethnicity or her ethnicity. So if you give the Assyrian an opportunity to, in this genocide, who have bled and established Iraq, to hold their footprint, you have a partner that can fight for you. You don't have to go in and try to introduce U.S. Marines on the ground to do the fighting for you. You could just give them the support and they'll tell you, stay out, we got it. And now you have another partner, just like you have Israel in the region. What else you want for that region?
Mr. Sangari, we only got about 40 seconds left. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight and shedding some light on the situation. Tell folks how they can help you and where to find you.
For us, if you support us through United Assyrian Appeal, again, United Assyrian Appeal, every dollar helps. And hopefully United States can step in, take over the mission, so we don't have to use United Assyrian Appeal to support the multi-families.
And we just got some correspondence today saying here is $50 for United Assyrian Appeal. Interesting timing, I thought. Colonel, we are going to support you. We urge everyone out there to support you. A link will be in our program description. God bless you. Stay safe. Thanks for the explanation. What an incredible explanation.